Hello and welcome to Green by Design. I'm Erica Reiner from Eco Method Interiors, and today I have with me Kate, and I'll have you pronounce her last name for me.
Bachner.
Bachner, thank you very much. And Kate Bachner has a very interesting job. She is the founder of Wise Matter, which is a new eco home consultancy focused on aligning our living spaces with our health and environment. So that means she works with owners of residential build teams to select their interior and structural building materials of the highest quality. She uses the research of chemists, architects, and thought leaders to choose materials with non-toxic chemicals and that favor sustainability. So, Kate, thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited to speak with you. And I would love for you to kick us off by letting us know a little bit more about your journey and how you got to what you're doing now at Wise Matter.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. And my journey is a little different, I guess. I have an art history background. So my undergrad is art history. Then I got my master's in contemporary art. And then I worked in the New York City art world for a really long time. And while I was working there, I learned about climate change and sustainability and started really getting into green building. And simultaneously, I was finding the art world a little too insular. So I took courses at NYU. I got my LEED Green Associate accreditation. And then I kind of just like forced my way into the green building world. I got my real estate license so I could be closer to buildings. I worked with inspectors because when you're selling a building or an apartment, an inspector comes in and checks out everything to make sure it's okay. Learn from that. And then this company called Healthy Building Science just took a chance on me, really. And the healthy material world was really kind of getting started when I joined. So there weren't really many experts. There were just real people who were passionate and also like very, very intense researchers. And I always had a fascination with how space affects behavior. And that's kind of what led me into the art world and being a curator. So I was like, all right, well, green materials, interior design does that. So I think this would be the best suited niche for me in terms of green building.
I love that story, and I love windy backgrounds because I have one too. So, and I
Yeah.
love how all the experiences culminate for such a, setting yourself up for such a unique position. So, what is most important to you in terms of green interiors? And I know you've worked with a lot of designers and furniture makers and things like that. What is most important to you to see happen, I guess?
I think there's two things. One is vetting a product or material for chemical composition. And another one is sourcing the material for its sustainability. And a lot of times those go hand in hand, but I'll give you an example of sustainability or eco-friendliness. Sustainability and eco-friendliness, they become like such buzzwords. I'm trying to find a different word, but right now, let's just use that. So for wood, for example, there's FSC certified wood, which is like the gold standard in sourcing wood, which is incredibly important because now like wood floors and wood buildings are becoming, or wood commercial buildings, obviously homes are a lot of times made of wood, but it's like considered a renewable resource. However, if we're sourcing it from a forest that is like a plantation forest and it's monocropping just one tree, or it's clear cutting, that's really doing a disservice to the natural world, but it's also doing a disservice to us. So I find that it's really important to source natural materials properly, and also understand that there's really a link between what we do to the natural world, to our environment, and how that really gets back to us. So say you have a material in your home and it's not really affecting your indoor air quality, but the manufacturing process of it releases pollutants and carcinogens into the air. That will get back to you. That'll get in your soil. That will get in the water. That will get in the air you breathe. And I think that gets lost a lot.
Absolutely. And really a good point that you've made. What's so funny is when I'm explaining the difference between sustainability and non-toxic, I always use that example. I'm always like,
Oh.
okay, we do FSC wood, FSC
Yeah.
wood, but it doesn't mean that the table was finished with non-toxic stains and adhesives and stuff like that. But
Sure.
you took it one level bigger and said, even on the back end, the production end, it's really important that we look at not just the finished product and does it off gas or get into your lungs in some kind of way, or your skin or whatever, in your home, but the people A, making it, and then B, the community at large, the country, the world at large, air quality, soil quality, water quality, all those kinds of things. So yeah, really well said. Okay, so my next question for you, what would be your top 3 favorite ways to see interior designers that you would work with go green? And that could be sustainable, or that could be non-toxic. What would your 3 big pieces of advice look like?
Oh, wow. Okay. Sourcing FSC wood. So making sure that the natural materials that you're sourcing are responsibly sourced, because that will, like I said, that will ultimately have an impact on the environment, the people around, but also the homeowner, right? It gets back to the homeowner. So that's one of the things. Next is really understanding that materials affect human health, like really getting to that it's kind of like how the food we eat affects our health, the materials that are in our home. We end up picking them up. We end up picking up the dust from materials and putting it into our mouths and breathing them in. So we're ingesting a lot of these things. And I think it's really important for interior designers to understand how really important it is. It's not this like fringe thing or just like this buzzword that, oh, let's like be trendy and call ourselves green. But I think that it's important to, I guess, something easy is to learn about green certifications as your guide. So like if you don't want to go into like this chemical,
Black
learn about
hole.
all the
Yeah.
chemicals and become like a chemist, and like, no, that sounds really overwhelming. But there's some certifications that you could look at that could help guide your decisions. So like for stains, it could be Green Guard Gold, for wood, FSC, for paint, zero VOC. And it's important to also ask if there is any exempt VOCs in your paint. So
I didn't know that. Thank you for teaching us that.
yeah, maybe I'm going on a tangent. So just like stop me if I'm
No, but
going
that's a
to.
good little tidbit.
So exempt VOC. So VOCs, the reason why they're a big deal is that they cause smog. That's why they've been curtailed. So the VOCs that are regulated are the VOCs that cause smog. The VOCs that don't cause smog are not regulated, and they don't count in the overall VOC measurement level.
Okay. That is such a good point and tip. So you're really going to want to look for paint companies that are going above and beyond, maybe the specialty paint companies who have been doing eco-friendly, non-toxic products for a while now.
Yeah, even bigger ones like Benjamin Moore is really responsible. They
Good. They're
they
my go-to.
do, yeah, they
Got to.
do. They make sure that their pigments don't have VOCs and they don't use exempt VOCs. There's also Ecos paints that
Yes,
are really
Ecos.
great. And then there's really cool mineral paint. Like there's this company called Roma Bio that uses like limestone kind of
Mm.
paint and American clay. And what's cool about that is that it's inherently like mold resistant. So you don't have to worry about like biocides or mildicides being added to the paint because it already has those qualities.
Beautiful fact and tidbit there that I'm sure everyone's gonna put in their pocket. Okay, so what would you like to see a little bit more of in the interior design industry? So this whole point and mission of this podcast is to A, connect to like-minded individuals and have discussions and all that, and B, um, be a voice for the industry as a whole that's trying to push it into a greener space. So we want to make certain things more available to us and to our designers and our clients, and then the people making them as a whole. So what are a couple things or one thing that you think we could do a little bit of a better job on?
I think it's important to know like the high impact categories. So like a lot of times you can't choose everything. You have a budget and you have time, there's time constraints. So I would say concentrate on wet applied products like coatings and sealants, um, uh, engineered wood. Make sure that the binders are doesn't have like formaldehyde in it, and it abides by like carbs 2 standards, which fortunately in California that's great because they have to. Watch out for halogenated flame retardants, which are in fabrics and like sofa foam.
Foams, yeah,
Yeah, foams and
cushions,
stuff like that. So basically, all right, so
wet
let's, I guess,
applied.
wet applied
So that's for you all
coating.
know listening, but yeah, so anything that's like paint, stains, varnishes, lacquers.
Yeah, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. So try and also go water based
Mm-hmm.
and look for green certifications because there's a lot of green certifications in that category. Floors, FSC wood or sustainably sourced wood. FSC, there is a price premium. So if you can't, if that doesn't work in your budget, make sure you ask some questions about where the wood is sourced. Um, I would say, okay, so upholstered goods, I think try and avoid products that are made or sofas that are made with foam and instead get latex, like natural latex wrapped in wool as an alternative, because then you don't have to worry about flame retardants being
Mm-hmm.
added to the product. So I think that that's a good rule of thumb for upholstered products.
Those were great. That's a really good, I think that was like a really good top three big impact areas to look at. And I think that those pretty much align with mine as well. Um, so those are things that we should be on the lookout for. Is there anything that you can think of that you've seen get better since you've been doing this work like in real time? Like for me, I've seen just an overall awareness grow. I've seen a few more, things become available in terms of choices and that could be both, excuse me, sustainable or eco-friendly, whichever umbrella you want to put it under, or I mean sustainable and non-toxic. And I've seen a lot more awareness about flame retardants and maybe a little bit about VOCs too. So is there anything that you are like really glad that you think we are doing a good job on as an
Sure.
industry and educating people about?
Absolutely. So I think materials are becoming the forefront. It's really the next level of sustainability. So I think first it was about being energy efficient. And now we're really looking at materials. So there's just been this proliferation of, you know, green third party certifications for materials. And there's all these organizations that um, are trying to make manufacturers be more transparent with their ingredients. And that really helps them know what's in their products and also how to improve it. And the manufacturers actually who are the most green are actually making a lot more profits than those that are not.
I love
Um,
that. I hope everyone
so
hears that.
yeah. Um, and I would check out also what the International Living Future Institute is doing. They oversee the Living Building Challenge, and they have a what's called a declare label, and that's on a lot of different products that lists the ingredients on them, and it also says whether they have they're
Watch list
on the watch list,
or
which is
the
like the
bad
red
list,
list.
the red
Yeah,
list,
the
the
red
no
list,
no list.
the
Yeah.
no list, and that's over like 800 chemicals, and their declare the number of manufacturers that are doing declare labels has really grown. So it just shows that it's gaining a lot of popularity.
That's great. So tell us now a little bit more about what your work looks like at Wise Matter and what you're doing on the day to day.
Sure. So I work with residential build teams. So I work with interior designers, contractors, architects, homeowners. I'm kind of like the center person a little bit because the homeowner comes to me, the contractor comes to me, and I help either vet products. So a contractor says, "Hey, could I use this sealant?" Or interior design, "Hey, could I use this sealant? Could I use this floor?" And I'm like, that's a little funky. Like, why don't we go this way? Why don't we choose this product? Or sometimes I just make a like do some guidelines, like, you know, well, this is kind of getting into more contractor and less interior design, but the first thing that comes to mind is like insulation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like, let's go to like natural insulation instead of foam insulation, or
Like
I
hemp, go buy hemp insulation and install that or whatever.
right, or cellulose or
Mm-hmm.
rock wool, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I work really closely with them to vet products, and my process really looking at the documentation that's available for the manufacturer, checking out what chemicals the manufacturer lists, and then cross-referencing that to a lot of different red lists. So there's like a bunch of red lists that have you know, hundreds of different chemicals of concern. California has one. The architecture company Perkins and Will, the European, what is it called? The European Chemical Agency
Mm-hmm.
has one. The ILFI has one. So I compare what's in the product to those lists.
I can't stress enough what important work this is because if anyone listening is less familiar, it's so the reason why all of us are doing this is because it's the wild west out there in terms of any oversight. So certifications, standards, data behind harmful chemicals, testing chemicals on human health. There's so many gaps between in all of those categories. There's so everything is a big patchwork. Nothing is clear to the consumer, and it requires a lot of your own research. And the reason is because there's no top-down oversight pretty much in this country. There's like 5 chemicals that are banned out of, I talk about this all the time, out of, however many, like 50,000 or whatever it is since, or more, since World War II and before. So, and in terms of supply chains and the sustainability there, it can be tricky to track. Um, there's a lot going on under the umbrella of eco-friendly, whether you're looking at the sustainability side or the non-toxic human health side. And so your work is so important because with that patchwork, there's a variety of, nonprofits that have sprung up trying to plug these holes and the gaps in the system. And there's also greenwashing. And then there's also no regulation that states that we need to have ingredient lists in materials, or, not allow certain things into baby cribs. There's just no one looking out. So it's, people doing some things the best that they can, and we need people to tie it all together, get out their magnifying glass and interpret for the rest of us. And that's why your work is so important and valuable. And green designers and myself try and make an effort to do this, and we streamline it a little bit by kind of going good, better, best. And my approach, at least, and some of the other designers I've had on there, describes trying to go for natural products, B, trying to go for products that have declaration of being sourced responsibly or are meeting certain criteria. And then obviously the best is having a third party audited, certified body with that label on it. But maybe even like platinum would be to have it being cross-referenced, investigated a little bit more, like with the work that you're doing. So I just think it's a really, really interesting role that you're filling, and hopefully we'll see more of you pop up and kind of help fill in more of those gaps in this industry. And let me ask you, are you only working with new builds or renovations, or would designers listening or whomever listening be able to reach out to you and get information on materials on behalf of their design project, or tell us how that would work?
Sure. So I work across the board. So I do new construction, major renovations, but also like cosmetic
Mm-hmm.
work. So say somebody needs like to source sustainable, beautiful furniture, or wants to change their paint on their wall. It really could be from like really big projects to really small ones.
Mm-hmm. Great. So is there anything else that you want us to know that we haven't covered, either about your work or the industry as a whole?
Mm-hmm. Um, I would say that um, eco-friendly homes just feel better. They feel better. The products that you're putting into them are made with intention. That intention is for your health and the health of the planet. And I think that really resonates in how a home feels. It resonates with the energy of the home. So we could talk about the chemicals and, the sourcing, and though that's really important. But I think, not to sound woo, but the subtle energy of the home feels better because it's aligned with the natural world and yourself, and it's really trying to harmonize the built environment with the natural environment. And I think that's really a beautiful thing.
I love that so much. And, that's not too woo-woo. That's actually the second time I've heard that sentiment. And I love it. The universe is forcing it upon me to recognize a little bit more. So thank you so much for sharing that. Is there one place where listeners can find you, hire you? get
Yeah,
at you?
sure. You could go to my website.
Mm-hmm.
It's wise, WISE dash matter, MATTER.com.
Great. Okay. I'm sure there'll be a lot of us knocking on your door. Well, thank you so much for sharing your really valuable insight and your process and the work that you do, and even just letting people know that this service exists with you and hopefully others. And um, I so appreciate your valuable time. So thank you so much for joining today.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. I think it's so important, the work that you're doing. And it's been my pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll catch you next time.
Okay, bye.